What's up, guys? Philip at Trade Genius. All right, time to talk about Bitcoin. A lot of price action has developed since our last video. Price did pull back, but we're going to talk about how that shook out. We're going to take a look at some weekly time frames and drill down on that. We're also going to take a look at our futures chart. We got a gap there. Take a look at the market price action. Lots of orders stacking up here on the sell side. We're also going to take a look at the crypto fear and greed and talk about this extension to the SEC's decision on this Van Eck/CBOE ETF decision. All right, guys, without further ado, let's dive into this video.
Trade Genius.
All right, guys, weekly charts up. Okay, again, this is this spot we've circled is part of the overall chart here on Bitcoin. This is the BLX chart, so we have like the longest look back on TradingView. But again, this was circling the areas historically that are areas where we bottom before the halvings, right? I'm of the mind that halvings really dictate these cycles. You can, basically all the other metrics basically follow, and then you can use them to confirm and then trade from those points. But really, it's the halving cycles that drive all this. So, looking at the weekly chart again, very bullish, increasing volume, nice big weekly volume bars, just destroying resistance levels. And now what we're doing is we're going to be hunting these bear tops that we talked about. We'll show that on lower time frames. But I wanted to kind of go over just real briefly the weekly time frame here. We overlaid this chart here. This was the previous 2015 exiting the bear cycle and going back into the next pre-halving bull move. And as you can see, this has just really even outperformed that. I do think we're going to see a bit of a pullback, something akin to this, and then go into this consolidation area right here. But as far as comparing it to days out from the halving and comparing it to the previous price action, this is far more bullish. We were keeping pace with it up into this point here at about 56, 5,700. And then instead of, pulling back, because typically when you run into this 50 period weekly moving average the first time, you usually fall back and then retest it. That's happened on 2 of the previous cycles. This time it just blows right through it. So, again, the market is changing. We're not the same market we were back then. So I think maybe what we're seeing is just because of there's broader participation, more Bitcoin has been accumulated. Maybe what we're seeing is just sharper moves that we've been previously seen. Okay, so big time bullish move here. So now what we're going to do is we're looking at hunting these prior bear tops. So if we drill down to lower time frame, we'll stick to the weekly chart on this particular one. This is Coinbase. And again, these 3 lines here, I think, are basically areas that we need to be cognizant of. The first one here was at 7,400. We came up the week before and tagged that and pulled back, and then we rested up and recharged and blew through it. And again, now this level is providing areas of resistance. So you can see these areas are providing areas of resistance. If we get something similar here and we actually exceed the 84 to 8,500 area, I think it's going to be a fairly quick trip up to test this prior high here. I think at that point we might start looking for any type of bearish divergence, either on the weekly or the daily time frames. I think because that getting beyond this level here, and unless a ton of volume starts pouring in and it's a really sharp, fast move through there, I think we probably would see a bit of a pullback here and possibly some consolidation. At the point of breaking this area, this resistance here, I could definitely see us ranging in here. The things that you need to be aware of as well on this move is what's going on with regards to the Chinese currency. And once the devaluation started kicking in, and this was the end of April into May, we really saw a coordinated move or correlated move with Bitcoin. And if we actually go down to say the 4-hour chart, what I've been keying in on is where we start seeing Bitcoin pull back, but we don't see much of a pullback on the Chinese yuan. And I think that shows us that if these dips are happening with Bitcoin and we keep seeing the yuan keep getting devaluated, and this is the USD CNH chart overlaid on it, right? So if they're devaluing, this is going up. If it's not devaluing, then it'll go down. Right now, what we're seeing is a bit of a move up and then a little bit of a pullback here. But this move up Again, here's a situation where it's deviating and then we get a pop, right? So we'll keep an eye on this, and you can do this on your TradingView charts. Just go to compare and put on the USD CNH chart, Forex chart, and just overlay it on there. But right now I'm using that as kind of a leading indicator on this current rally. And the thing with this is, as long as these trade wars keep going, China is not afraid to just keep grinding their currency down. So it'll be interesting to see how much this plays out and how much this correlation continues to happen. All right, so I want to talk about what happened here on this move down. So this represented that Bitstamp. Basically what happened, guys, if you're not clear yet on this, there was a large order, something on the magnitude of around 5,000 BTC, was submitted as an order from these levels, but it was submitted as an order to sell it down to like $6,200. So it could have been what's, quote unquote, a fat finger incident where it just gets accidentally submitted. In essence, that creates this large market order because it's going to sell anything on the ladder, so all the bids down to 6,200. And so Bitstamp had led that move all the way down, but the markets just bounced pretty quickly off that level. And this area 6,400, depending on the exchange, this is Coinbase, it got down to as low as 6,600, got down it got down to about the 6,100 level on Bitstamp. But that was across exchanges, this was a prime area of support, and then we got the big bounce up. So that's the big reflexive move off of that, and Bitcoin immediately retraces that. So I'm kind of the mind that was probably an accidental order, and we had a lot of support waiting down below in those areas, which made sense on the chart. As you can see, there's a volume void here, and so when the buyers started to come in and push back up above this level, that void was quickly reclaimed and then back up. So now we're kind of resuming what was happening over here, and again, I think same scenario, barring another crazy market order like that, which odds of that are not likely at this point. Again, we'll be looking for a break outside of this area, and we can draw this real quick. So essentially, looking for a close outside this box on the chart. So a low of 76.78 up to about 83.21. We can get a nice hourly, 2-hour, 4-hour close outside of that, then we need to pay attention. As far as where we would be going on the upside, there's a huge amount of sell supply. So if I look at the depth chart here, this is the Coinbase depth chart. You can see this is a fairly large amount of supply here as we are approaching this 8,500 level. And then it starts to level off. And I realize this can change as markets eat through these levels, but right now I think if you can get above 8,500 and eat through all of this big supply, I think that's going to take us well into the 9,000s. Zooming in, you can see, there's basically been a big tug of war in this lower 8,000 to high 7,000s area. And again, we could see a pullback on the markets, just because it's very bullish that it came up to this level, but, we could see a bit more consolidation as this level gets chewed on. If you'll take notice here is the Bitcoin or the CME futures gap, right? So because we have gaps on these charts because the CME futures are closed over the weekend and Bitcoin is just very volatile right now. So this is just going to be a very gappy chart for the time being. As you can see here, we had a gap that was at 63.94, far cry from where we were peaking out at here, just around 8,400, and then all of a sudden, boom, the gap is filled. But notice how they came in and bought that where the gap was. So these gaps, for one reason or another, whether it's a mistake or whatever, but they're going to be areas of support. So if price does get down there, they get bought. So I think, and they always do close, guys. It's just nature of the game. So I think it'd be wise to work some orders here and any kind of pullback to be bought, just because that weekly chart, guys, is just so bullish. It really is. You can't ignore that. So I know it seems like we're going to be going to all-time highs here. Price has been bought back up, but even if this pulls back here in the next 24 hours to this level, that's not really a bad thing. That's pretty healthy. And I think you would be, just because of the amount of supply that's overhead here, some consolidation. Again, remember, we have this area that basically this volume void in here. So I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing that gap gets filled. In fact, I'd rather see it filled sooner rather than later for the bullish case. Okay, so that's on the downside. And again, if we can get above this 83.25, if we can close nicely above that, then we might have a serious case about chewing into that 8,500 level and breaking through it. All right, so that's basically going to wrap it up here, guys, on the Bitcoin outlook this week. Again, I think this area, keep an eye on this area. There's plays to be made on the lower time frames, but right now I think that 7100 area gap is probably a key level to be eyeing for any type of pullbacks. And it's not a bad thing if we dive down there. And then again, the 8500 level is key. In between those levels, the lower time frames, we'll be looking at our moneymaker signals and entering some more discretionary type, smaller time frame trades in the meantime. But those are your big key levels to watch. Breaking 8,500, we'll do another update and we'll talk about what's going on at that point. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Hope that helps. Please hit like and subscribe. We appreciate all the views, and I'll see you on the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.
Trade Genius.